Today on the Commanders Report, we got a full slate of Commanders news and rumors to cover with you guys. First, Brandon McManus seems to be in some legal trouble right now. We'll go over his situation and the potential replacement options at kicker for the Commanders if they decide to move on. Then we have another trade rumor surrounding defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, this time to the Chicago Bears. We'll break that down in the middle of today's show, and then we'll finish things up with a viral photo of Emmanuel Forbes that has some Commanders fans questioning if a second-year leap is really going to happen. Now, before we get into today's news and rumors slate, I want to give you guys an update on our mission here to close the gap on the Alabama football report. They're the next team to take over here in the Chat Sports subscriber power rankings. We're trying to move up as much as possible before the season so that we can get you guys as much fun content and even giveaways during our watch parties this year. The higher we rise, the more stuff we get, the more studio space and time we get. So we really do appreciate when you click that subscribe button. And we actually closed the gap by 129 subscribers just this weekend. So thank you to everybody that clicked that subscribe button over the last 3 days or so. And if you're watching our show for the first time, or if you've watched a couple of shows and you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, most of the people that watch these videos are already subscribed, so we're really relying on the new viewers to help us out to close the gap and help us get past the Alabama football report so we can move up the power rankings here at Chat Sports. Now, before we get to the rest of today's show and we go into the football stuff, let's go over kind of the big story when it comes to new Commanders kicker Brandon McManus, who is being sued for sexual assault by two separate women who are flight attendants on a flight for the Jacksonville Jaguars that was heading to London for one of their two London games last year. And the two women alleged that McManus was touching them in inappropriate ways, was making unwanted sexual advances, offering them money to do things that they didn't want to do, all this different kind of stuff. You can check out the details if you want on that, but it's not good if this stuff ends up being true. And the women are also suing the Jacksonville Jaguars in the lawsuit, claiming that the team didn't do enough to alleviate their concerns when they brought them to the team after it happened last year. So the big question when it comes to the Washington Commanders is, will they cut McManus after these allegations? Because remember, these things are not proven in a court of law or anything like that, so they're just allegations at this point. So is that enough for the Commanders to move on? This is what the Washington Commanders' official statement on the situation is. Earlier today, we were made aware of the civil lawsuit filed on May 24th against Brandon McManus. We take allegations of this nature very seriously and are looking into the matter. We have been in communication with the league office and Brandon's representation and will reserve further comment at this time. And then McManus' legal team also released a statement. So, kind of going over every single side of the story here. This is what McManus and his legal team had to say about the situation. These are absolutely fictitious and demonstrably false allegations made as part of a campaign to defame and disparage a talented and well-respected NFL player. We intend to aggressively defend Brandon's rights and integrity and clear his name by showing what these claims truly are, an extortion attempt. So listen, guys, I think that he's going to get cut. Unless they really find evidence that these claims have no bearing or anything like that in the coming days. I'm just not sure if keeping on kind of like a mid-level kicker is really worth the trouble that's going to come with keeping him on. Who knows? I've been wrong on this before. I mean, potentially they keep him. We don't know the developments in coming days. But if they end up cutting him, what's important for the Washington Commanders and you being a fan of this football team is, how are they going to address the kicker position if he ends up getting cut? And I do think that there are some interesting options out there. And what I would do is I'd go out and get UFL kicker Jake Bates, currently kicking for the Michigan Panthers, who has been absolutely hitting rockets off of his foot all spring long. He had a 64-yard field goal earlier in this season, so he's somebody that I think could definitely kick in the National Football League. He's definitely the best kicker at the UFL level right now. And if you don't want to go that route, there are some other options with NFL experience. Brett Maher doesn't have a great power in his leg anymore, but he's very reliable. Randy Bullock, and then Joey Sly. You could even bring him back if you're absolutely desperate to find a kicker. So those are your options there for the kicker position if you are the Washington Commanders. But predict it for me down there in the comments section. Do you think Brandon McManus is going to get cut for these sexual assault allegations? Type C if you think they're going to cut him, or type K if you think they're going to keep him. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. So now let's shift over to a Jonathan Allen trade rumor here from Bleacher Report, where they say the Commanders should trade Jonathan Allen to the Chicago Bears in exchange for a second-round pick and a sixth-round pick. And, based on the rumors that I've kind of been seeing floated around out there, this is a pretty generous offer that Bleacher Report is kind of giving the Washington Commanders. I've seen a lot of third-round pick trade rumors thrown out there in recent days and weeks. So a second-round pick, I think, would be pretty decent compensation. But this is what Alex Ballantyne from Bleacher Report had to say. At this point, Matt Eberflus's comment that the 3 technique is the engine of his defense has been well circulated. But the 2024 draft came and went, and the Bears still don't have a dominant interior defender who can make Eberflus's system go in Chicago. Jonathan Allen seems to love the new direction of the defense in Washington under new head coach Dan Quinn. The question is whether the new front office feels the same love. They just handed Deron Payne a massive contract extension and drafted Jerzon Newton in the draft. Now, I really don't think that a second-round pick and a sixth-round pick in a future draft is really bad compensation. Jonathan is getting close to 30 years old. I mean, I think that a second-round pick for an aging defensive tackle with 2 years left on his contract is a pretty decent compensation in a trade if you want to get rid of Jonathan Allen. With that being said, I don't think the Commanders want to trade Allen at this point. I think that they view him as a very important cog in the machine that's going to be this new defensive front led by new head coach Dan Quinn and new defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. I think they're going to do something similar to what they did there in Dallas, where it's going to be mostly a kind of five-person front, where you're going to have a linebacker type like a Frankie Louvu or a Micah Parsons kind of roaming around as constantly a blitz threat. Then you're going to have Dorrance Armstrong and Johnny Newton as kind of your true defensive ends. Johnny Newton would be kind of a bigger defensive end, but I think he'd play more of like a 5 technique, which is more of an interior player in a 3-4 scheme. Kind of a unique role there for Johnny Newton. One of the reasons why I think they took him so early in the draft this year. Then you get Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne as your true interior threats. Jonathan playing the 3 technique, then Deron at 320 pounds playing the nose. And I just think that this is an alignment that's going to work. It allows you to get Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, and Johnny Newton on the field at all times. It allows you to create confusion, all these different things. And if you trade Jonathan Allen, you're not going to have the same level of versatility. You're not going to have the ability to do this kind of creative front, and I don't think that's something the Washington Commanders want to do. So let me know down there in the comments section, would you accept this trade, second-round pick and a sixth-round pick in 2026 in exchange for Jonathan Allen? Type A if you would accept it, or type D if you are going to decline it. Let me know how you're feeling about this offer down there in the comments. For me, I'm putting my D for decline down there in the comments section. So the final topic on today's edition of the Commanders Report is, should we be worried about Emmanuel Forbes? Of course, he was drafted 16th overall in the draft last year. He was expected to be a complete ball hawk. He came into the league with so many interceptions and so many pick sixes there at Mississippi State. And the big concern with him coming into the league was that he was super, super skinny, and that's still a concern, all right? And just the latest edition of this story here is that this photo has been going viral on social media this past weekend, where, if you got the full shot there, you would see his legs, and he just looks so much smaller and so much skinnier than the high schooler that was at his camp. He looks like the high schooler at a pro's camp standing next to one of these high school players. So listen, does this mean Emmanuel Forbes can't play football? No. Does this mean he's going to have a terrible sophomore season here? No. I've said on the show multiple times, I'm optimistic about Forbes specifically in this style of defense because it allows him to be aggressive. It allows him to go after interceptions and try to be that ball hawking type player he was at Mississippi State. But people absolutely have a right and, even reason to be concerned about his play heading into the league because it just seems like he doesn't have the size to keep up with kind of the bigger receivers in the league. Guys like A.J. Brown, who has to play twice a year with the Philadelphia Eagles. Guys like DK Metcalf on the Seattle Seahawks and all the other bigger type receivers playing the X position. I really do think it limits Forbes' ability to be a true number one corner because he can't cover the bigger guys in the league. And that definitely puts a cap on just how good he can be. And the reason why this sucks specifically, guys, is that Washington is really relying on Forbes to take a big leap in year two because they just didn't really do much at the position, either in free agency or via the draft. Yeah, they brought in Michael Davis, who's, a little bit bigger, and, you do have Benjamin St-Juste, who's got some size, but other than that, man, what do they have at outside corner? Not much outside of Emmanuel Forbes, who you're really hoping comes on as your true number one. But listen, man, he looks like he's 170 pounds to me, and that's speaking as somebody who's 170 pounds, okay? So I know my skinny guys. This guy looks skinny, even for, just a normal person, let alone an NFL corner, and it's going to be difficult if he's playing at that weight to really keep up with some of the best receivers in the game, specifically the bigger guys. So I think, this defense is really going to be relying on Michael Davis and Benjamin St-Juste to be covering kind of these bigger type receivers, and I'm just not sure if that's exactly what you want if you are the Washington Commanders. And I do think that this outside cornerback room is one of the biggest problems facing this Commanders defense heading into the year. Now let me know, is Emmanuel Forbes going to boom or is he going to bust in 2024? Simply type boom if you think he's going to be awesome, or type bust if you think he's going to disappoint yet again here in his second season in the league. That'll be it for today's show. Commanders fans, really do appreciate all of your support. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already to help us close the gap against the Alabama football report and help us move up the Chat Sports Power Rankings today.